Hello, I am Rose Steinbush, and welcome to today's short presentation on the Soviet KV-2. With the multi-turreted T-35 tank being a general disappointment, Soviet tank designers were tasked with making a new breakthrough tank to replace it. Three main designs were at the head of the race to fill this role: the T-100, the multi-turreted SMK, and a single-turreted variant named the KV, named after Soviet politician Kliment Voroshilov. Each of the prototypes were tested in actual combat for the first time in the 1939 Winter War in Finland, where the KV vastly outperformed the other two designs, being virtually invulnerable to Finnish anti-tank weapons. Though tough, it only housed a small 76.2mm anti-tank gun, which had great difficulty dealing with concrete fortifications, especially present on the Finnish Mannerheim line. And so in just 2 weeks, the Soviets designed a turret which would house a large 152mm howitzer, and use the same chassis and turret ring as the KV. This tank would be named KV Big Turret, and is known today as the KV-2, and production of 4 prototypes would begin at the same time as the mass production of the original KV design, known after as KV Little Turret, and known today as KV-1. To simplify production and attempt to rectify various issues found in its short time during the Winter War, and during factory testing, the turret was redesigned in 1940, notably removing the slopes in the front, adding a slightly new gun, and adding a machine gun port in the back. Due to the noticeable aesthetic change in the turret's shape, it is easy to distinguish between the early and late versions of the tank. The KV-2's short time serving in the Winter War, and the testing at the factory, even after the 1940 rework, showed that the KV-2 was wrought with issues, mostly related to the hastily designed turret and the fact that it was mounted on an unsuitable turret ring, which was meant for the smaller KV-1 turret. The KV-2's turret took a full 36 seconds to travel 360 degrees, even while using the electric traverse system. This drawback would leave it quite vulnerable to tanks which were faster and could outmaneuver it. The main gun had to be fired on flat terrain or the recoil would damage the turret ring. As you may have guessed, the KV-2 was very top-heavy, often causing them to tip over. Despite many issues shown at the testing grounds, a total of 204 would be built and sent into combat, including 20 using the original design, which were built before the rework. On June 22, 1941, Germany launched a massive invasion of Russia, codenamed Operation Barbarossa, during which Germany advanced some 1,000 miles from their starting point all the way to the outskirts of Moscow in just 5 months, capturing big cities and small towns on the way, and inflicting their reign of terror on the innocent civilians. It was at the beginning of Barbarossa that the production of the new KV-2s was finished, and they were subsequently pressed into combat. It was here where the KV-2 was pushed to its absolute limits, as it was not suited for the defensive combat conditions it was being put through, despite being thrust into a situation it was not made for, given the fact that it was designed as a breakthrough tank against fortifications. It still caused quite a headache for the Germans and their early war tanks, with 60 to 110mm thick armor being impervious to all but the 8.8mm flak guns. While not faring well in defensive thrusts due to their tendency to tip over and trouble with hills, they made for formidable stationary bunkers. An example of this was during the Battle of Ryazany in Lithuania, which began on the 23rd of June, 1941. It is reported that a single KV-2 positioned itself in a crossroads and held off the advance of the German 6th Panzer Division for an entire day, as they thought the KV-2 was part of a larger Soviet counterattack and retreated to massed forces. The KV-2 knocked out numerous tanks as well as 12 trucks from a supply convoy before it ran out of ammunition and was overrun by infantry. However, by the end of 1941, all of the KV-2s were knocked out or abandoned by their crews, with very few in service by 1942, even in German service. Today there is only one surviving example, which resides in the Russian Central Armed Forces Museum in Moscow. This strange machine, though rushed and plagued with problems, still played an important role in the halting of the German advance into Soviet Russia, undoubtedly buying time the Soviets desperately needed.